So I hope you people should be able to see this screen. Um, Probably anyone of you can speak it out over here.
Sorry.
Able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So one again a simple request that I have to just tell you that probably it might be for every day for the next couple of weeks. There might be that I'll be late for 10 to 15 minutes maximum. Because of, as I was talking earlier, because of some kind of issues that happened in the production, which has led a meeting every day at the same time till 9:15 our time, IST, 9:15 IST. So I might be late for 10 or 15 minutes daily. Whenever I'll be late, I'll just inform you. I was thinking that it will be completed today, so that is why I did not ping. In general, if I'll be late, I'll inform you in advance, like at least 30 minutes advance. You'll be prepared. Okay. Also, just a request that please mute yourself, everyone. Whenever you have any questions, unmute, and then you can start asking any type of questions if you have, and then we'll go through with that. Also, meanwhile, you can also post inside the Q&A. Okay, so let's get started and see what we have discussed yesterday. So I hope you are able to see my Visual Studio Code screen over here.
Yes, bro.
Right. Okay, so we started working on a statement part yesterday. So we started working on a statement part yesterday. Where we have discussed what is normal if statement. We have also discussed what is if else statement, where can we use, what should be the definition, how do we utilize this, in which case we can use that, and so on. Now in our today's session, we'll talk about number 3 and number 4 over here, which is if else if statement and switch statement. These are two again important statement that we have in both JavaScript and TypeScript. The syntax will be same in all the other programming languages as well. But let's see what is the use of if else if and switch statement. Okay. So when we talk about an if else if statement, till now we have seen like if and if else statement, right? If you see over here in general for both if statement and if else statement, every time it is just taking a single condition over here. Here as well in terms of if else, it is taking one single condition, and in the if statement as well, it is just taking a single statement, right? What if we have a multiple conditions to validate? Let's say if one is let's say if marks is greater than 90, then consider something. If marks is greater than 80, then consider something. Or if marks is greater than 60, then consider something. So what happened in this case is there are 3 or n number of different conditions are available, right? Whenever you have to validate a multiple conditions is not something that we have discussed in terms of logical array. Logical operator, right? Multiple conditions means different conditions. Whenever you have to validate, at that point of time, we can go for if else if statement. When you are trying to make a decision depending on multiple conditions, if not this, then validate other conditions. If not this, then validate other conditions, and so on. In that case, we can in that case we can basically start using the if else if or switch statement. Both are alternative to one another, but when can we use, what will be the values where we can use like if else if statement and a switch statement, that will also go in our session today. Okay, so let's see what is the use of if else if what is the syntax that we have, how do we declare those things, and so on in our session today. Okay, let's start with, I believe like a few of our colleagues are trying to check if the class have started or not. If any one of you are on WhatsApp, you can reply over. Thanks. Okay, so now let's go for if else if statement. The third one that we have is known as if else if statement. If else if statement. So yesterday I said that whenever you see if keyword, right? Whenever you see if keyword inside a statement, that will always take a condition. Okay. Whenever you see if keyword inside a statement, that will take always a condition, whatever the condition that you are trying to validate. If you are trying to validate normal condition, or if you're trying to validate for an element that are available inside an array, or any other condition that if you are trying to validate for, generally that will go inside a if keyword. Okay, so in this case, if you try to see if else if is having more than one if it is not true, then go inside a else, and again there is something known as if statement over there. Okay, so when can we use this? Whenever you are trying to validate a more than one condition. Whenever you are trying to validate more than one condition, at that point of time, we can go for if else if statement. Now, what is the syntax? Syntax is, as we have seen for if else condition yesterday, it will be the similar things. If condition, and if it is not matching, then it will go inside the else block of code. Okay, if it is matching, then it will directly go inside the if block of code. Okay, in any of the case, whether you have 100 types of condition or you have one type of condition, in any of the case, there will be only one block of code will be executed. There will be only one block of code that will get executed in any of the case. Now here the syntax is if condition, and then inside this a block of code for if block of code. I'll just write it as if block of code. Okay, and again it will go inside the else block. If it is not matching, then it will go inside the if else block. And here also it will take another condition, which is, let's say, condition 2. Okay. Again this condition will be validated. If it is not true, if it is true, then this block of code will be executed. If it is not true, then again it will go inside else, and there we can also take another condition over here. At this also we can take another condition, which can be let's say condition 3. Okay, if it is true, then again the inside that block will be executed. If it is not true, then for each and every if statement, the last block of code will be for else. Last block will always be an else block of code. Else block of code. What is in that? That means it says that except the first one that we have discussed, which is only the if statement. Apart from that, for all, we'll be having else block will be the last statement or last block of code. Okay, so if you see over here, which is if condition 1, then that block of code will be executed. If the condition is matching, then this block of code will be executed. If the condition is not matching, then we are trying to validate another condition. Okay, if again this condition is not matching, then we are trying to validate another condition. Again, if this condition is not matching, at that point of time, whatever the else block of code will be there, that will be executed. So else block will only come into picture if all the conditions have returned us a false value. That means if all the conditions have failed, at that point of time, it will directly go to the else block of code. Okay. But in this case, in if else if statement, there will be multiple conditions that we can validate over here. Okay. Again, I'll just request, if you have any questions, you can feel free to drop inside Q&A. Else you can also unmute yourself and then ask the questions. Okay, so now when we talk about an if else if statement.
Okay, so Praveen, just one question.
Yes. Yes, yes, go ahead.
I would like to ask, I mean, in if else if condition, we can able to write n number of else if block, or is there any restriction in the same?
So you can write n number of conditions. There will not be any restriction over here.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
Yeah. So in
Okay,
my
yeah,
opinion, like you
thanks.
can write two times, right? Else if, if then else if two times and then else, right?
You can write multiple else if. So what happened is like we have written if, right? If it is not matching, if the condition is not true, then it will go inside the else block, right? Inside the else block, again, we are trying to check another condition. So we have written if block again. When this if block does not match, then it will go inside the else block, right? So it will go an else block, and inside the else block, again, we are trying to check another condition. Again, if it is not matching, then it will go inside the else block. If you again have a condition, you can write it over there, over here as well. Let's say condition 4. At the end, when it is not matching, it will move to the else block of code.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh,
At the end, there should have to be one else block of code which will be executed if none of the conditions are matching.
so Praveen sir, in my opinion, so this is so useful when we have like multiple conditions to write, right? Instead of
Exactly.
okay.
Exactly. I'll let you know where can we use that. After the completion of this, I'll let you know where can we use this.
Thank you.
Okay. Now this is the syntax that we have. So what or where can we use this? Let's see an example. So sometimes what happen is this will again not be applicable in terms of the playwright test automation, but sometimes what happen is you will also be able to check. Let's say if you're trying to run your test automation on different browsers, right? So when I say like this is not applicable in terms of Playwright, that doesn't mean like your test case will not run on different browsers. But Playwright will automatically handle those kind of things if you want to run on different browsers. Okay. So sometimes in other tools and technology, we'll be writing a condition depending on the browser that you are trying to use, right? So what we'll do is let's see a program over here. So what I'll do is I'll declare a browser as a variable, and that browser I'll mention it as a Chrome example. Okay. Now we'll try to check a condition. Here we are trying to hard code, but this value can come from any classes, any utility files, or any utility classes as well. Okay. Now we'll write the if-else-if condition over here to check if the browser equals to Chrome or not. If the browser triple equals to Chrome. Right? Why do we use triple equal? Why do
For
we use
strict
triple equal?
check,
Equal to, right? Operator
for strict checking,
Equals to.
Praveen.
equals
Right.
to operator.
Right. Right. So for strictly checking the value, we use triple equal to. Strictly checking means it will validate the values as well as the data type of the variables. Okay. So what we are saying is, let's say if browser equals to Chrome, then I'm trying to print some dummy over here. But in general, what will happen is in Selenium, we'll launch the Chrome browser. Okay. If this condition is not true, then it will go inside the else block. Right? And inside the else block as well, we are trying to check another condition by providing if over here. And also write if over here. So inside this, we are trying to check another if condition, which we will check it as, let's say, browser equals to Firefox over here. Let's say example, browser equals to Firefox. Then in that case, start the Firefox browser. Else if we have another condition over here, which is something like, let's say, browser equals to Safari. Right? In that case, we'll launch the Safari browser inside the for the test automation. Right? If it is not matching with any of the condition, then we can print it else, and inside that we can say that the browser is not supported, or the browser is not Chrome, Firefox, or Safari. Some kind of things I have given over here. Right. So now, as I said earlier, that whenever you use any of the statement, that statement will only execute, even though if you have millions of conditions, or let's say hundreds of conditions that you have given over here, only one block of code will be executed. Only one block of code will always be executed over here. in this case. In if-else condition also only one block of code will be executed. If you have written multiple conditions, then also only one block of code will be executed. And that will be the block if wherever the condition is matching or wherever the condition is true. Else, if none of the condition is matching, then the last block of code, which will be else block of code. But at least one block of code will always get executed. Okay, now in this case, what will happen is it will try to check, okay, browser is equals to Chrome that we have declared. So it will try to compare condition, which is Chrome equals to Chrome. Yes, this is matching. So at this point of time, this will return us a value, which is Chrome, browser is Chrome. Let's also execute, and then we'll try to check with multiple conditions over here. We are in the statements part.
So, Praveen sir, if we have not the edge, right? We don't have edge in our condition, so directly it will go to the last statement, I think.
I'll come to that point. I'll come to that point. Okay. So here, this is coming from. Let me also lock this over here. So if you see the result that it is saying, a browser is Chrome, right? Browser is Chrome. Now let's say if I just declare it over here something known as Firefox. Okay, so it will still check whether the browser is Chrome or not. This condition will validate first. This condition become false, so then it will go to the next condition to validate whether the next condition is matching or not. Okay, again, if you see over here, if the next condition is matching, which is matching over here, then this block of code will be executed and others will be skipped over here. We completely get skipped over here. Okay, now let's say make it as a Safari over here. Now it will again check the first condition, whether this is matching or not. If this is not matching, it will go to the next condition, whether this is matching or not. If this is not matching, again this will go to the next condition, and here the condition will match. And in this case, it will print browser is Safari over here. Okay, you can see that only one block of code is getting printed over here. Now let's say if you say it as Opera, right? Example, if you're saying as Opera, in this case, you'll see that it will first validate, okay, Opera is equals to Chrome, false. Opera equals to Firefox, false. Opera equals to Safari, false. And then if none of the condition is matching, then it will go to the else block of code. And you can see that it is saying browser is not supported. But in this case, if you see, every condition is also getting validated over here. All the condition it's validated. So let's say example, if you have 100 conditions that you have written inside your code. If you have 100 conditions that you have written inside your code, and if none of the condition is matching or none of the conditions are matching, in that case also it will validate all the 100 conditions, and then only it will move to the else block of code. Okay, so in this case, still, even if nothing is matching over there, it will, none of the condition is matching, it will still validate all 100 conditions, and at the end it will move to the else block of code. Okay, so that means the execution for using if-else-if condition will be bit slower, because it validates all the conditions and then move to the else block of code. Okay, so whenever you have certain situations where you are trying to validate a simple conditions, whenever you have a certain situations when you are trying to validate a simple conditions in a multiple ways, simple conditions in a multiple ways, like multiple conditions having the same type of conditions that you are trying to check. What I mean to say same type of condition means browser equals to Chrome, Safari, browser equals to XYZ, and so on. Whenever you are validating a simple conditions, which is validating for same type of data type, same type of values, okay, then instead of going through if-else-if condition, we can directly move to the switch statement. Instead of going through if-else-if condition, we can go to the switch statement. Why? Because switch statement will not validate all the conditions before it moves to the else block of code. Switch conditions will directly check, do we have the condition that we have defined over here? whatever the condition that we are trying to check, do we have that case value available inside a switch? If it is available, then it will directly jump. If it is not available, then in terms of a switch block, there will be a default. In terms of a switch statement, there will be a default block of code. So if none of the condition are matching, it will not validate each and every condition every time. It will just check whether the case value are available or not. If it is not available, then it will directly jump to default block of code inside switch statement, like instead of checking all the conditions that if else if block will check. Okay, so if else if block is useful most of the time, but when can we use these if else if block of code? When you are working with range conditions, when there are something ranges conditions, like marks is, let's say example, marks is greater than marks is greater than 95 or 90, or let's say sales value, in terms of e-commerce website, if the sales value is greater than 1 lakh or greater than 10 lakh or whatever the value. So whenever you see a ranges available, there the if else if block will be helpful, because in terms of ranges we cannot go for switch condition. But let's talk about these things after going through with the switch condition. So once you understand the switch statement, after that understanding this will also become very easy. Okay, so if else if condition works in the same way as switch works, switch statement work, but the problem over here is that it will validate all the conditions that you have mentioned before it goes to the else block of code if none of the condition are matching.
Can't we use, or statement instead of writing multiple conditions like this? Like, say for example, if browser is equal to Chrome, or browser equal to Firefox, or browser equal to Safari, then else block. Can't we write like that?
So
is it wrong?
So when you say like if your browser is Chrome and your browser is Firefox, let's say you have written some kind of condition where your browser is matching Firefox, how will you write the statement over here to launch the Firefox browser? So when you are trying to check with one condition, you can launch that particular browser. When you are trying to check with or condition, there might be chances that instead of a Chrome, it can match with Safari.
Okay.
So there, the complexity will come into picture.
Okay, got it.
Right. So in terms of if else if block, whenever we are trying to use if else if blocks, it used to be a bit slower in terms of execution as it goes through each and every condition that we define. Okay, let's see the last statement. Nowadays, like nested if else statement will never be used either in terms of the programming or in terms of the test automation. But I'll show you, towards the end of the discussion of TypeScript, that how do we use nested if else. So I'll make a Q&A part over here, which is Q&A.ts. If you have any kind of questions, you can ask me. I'll add it inside the Q&A, and those discussions will also be doing it in terms of whenever we will have some kind of defined time. When we'll have sometimes we'll be defining. Okay, so in terms of a switch, now let's move back to the switch statement. Go back, go to the switch statement and see how does it work. So fifth one that we have is a switch statement. Switch statement. Switch statements is an alternative to the if else block of code, but whenever you are trying to check with a simple conditions. Simple conditions can be when your data type is same, when you are trying to validate with similar kind of conditions. At that point of time, this switch statement will be very helpful. At that point of time, this switch statement will be very helpful. Now see, what is the syntax for the switch statement? The syntax for switch statement that we have is, it will start with a switch keyword, and then this switch will accept an expression. What is expression? The condition that we are trying to validate over. Okay, this will accept a expression, and then this will have a different kind of case value. So it will have a case, some values over here. If you are trying to check with numerical, then numeric value. If you are trying to check with string, then string value, and so on. So this will have a case value, and then there will be a break code to be executed, and then breaks statement. Okay, then again there will be another case code for that particular case. What is this case? Case is a block that you see over here, which is curly braces. In terms of a switch, the syntax is like this, which is switch keyword. It will accept an expression, and then the curly braces will start over here. Okay, inside this curly braces, we'll have multiple conditions to validate, which is known as a case in terms of switch. Okay, and every case will end up with a break keyword. Every case will have a break keyword available. What is use of break keyword? I'll talk about in a few minutes. Here we'll have a break, and then we can also write another case value. And for this as well, we can have a code and then break statement. And at the end, we'll have a default block of code, and then we can also write a break statement over here. So this is the total syntax that we have for switch. Switch will take an expression. This is also taking an expression where it is trying to validate some conditions. Okay, and then it will have a value. What we are trying to validate over here, a browser equals to Chrome or not, right? So this browser will be an expression over here, and the value that you see over here, which is case value, becomes the Chrome, Firefox, Safari, and so on. Let's try to see the similar example that we have used over here in terms of a switch case. We'll simply say it as, let's say, browser name equals to example. Okay. Now, how do we write in terms of a switch statement? So switch, and then we'll have an expression, which is a browser name. So what we are trying to validate here, browser equals to Chrome or not, right? So here this will be taken as an expression. The browser that you have defined over here will be taken as an expression in terms of a switch. That means it will go inside a switch block of code, switch parenthesis. Okay, now the browser name that you see is equals to this one. Here we are trying to check a condition by using either 2 times equal or 3 times equal, and here we'll try to check with the case value. Case is Chrome. If the case is Chrome, then browser is Chrome, and then break. If the case is Firefox, browser is Firefox, and then again break. If again the case is Safari, block of code, and then break. If nothing is matching, then it will go to the default and say that browser is not matching, and then end up the switch statement over here. Now in this case, if you try to see, it is having exactly similar things that we have written in terms of if-else-if block. Okay. Now let's see what I'm trying to talk about over here. Here in this case, if you see, we are trying to check this browser name. Currently at this place, what it will happen is it will become like this, switch and then Chrome. Okay. So here also we are trying to check browser equals to Chrome. At this point of time, this will become Chrome equals to Chrome, right? Equals to Chrome. Okay. At this point of time, this condition becomes like this. If you have Opera, then this will become Opera equals to Chrome or not, right? So in the same way, in terms of a switch, a little bit of a different that we have in terms of the syntax. So syntax is it will take an expression, whatever the condition that we are trying to validate. So it has taken a browser name over here. Okay, and then it will check with this particular value. So we have a browser as Chrome, so it will validate, do we have any Chrome available as a case? Do we have any Chrome available as a case value over here or not? Okay, so it will try to search inside the case. It will not go and validate the condition. It will just check, do we have any case available? Do we have any case available over here as a Chrome? If it is matching, then it will go inside that. This is known as colon that you see is basically a block for switch statement. Okay, then it will go inside this. Browser is Chrome, it will print this browser is Chrome, and then a break keyword encounters. What is the use of break keyword? Break keyword basically terminates the loop. Okay, terminates the loop. Majorly we'll be using inside a looping concept or inside the switch statement. Other places, you will not be able to use this break keyword. Okay, inside other steps, you cannot use a break keyword. So if you want to use over here, let's say break, you will not be able to use this break keyword because it says that a break statement can only be used within an enclosing iteration or switch statement. That means either you can use inside a switch statement or you can use inside a loop, which is iteration. Okay, so here, as soon as the break keyword encountered, the complete loop will get broken over here. That means the control will come out of the switch statement. Okay. Now see, in this case, what is happening? Here the browser name, whatever the browser name that we have defined, that will get replaced over here. So switch Chrome, and it will try to check, do we have any case value as Chrome? Okay, it will just check, do we have any case value as Chrome? It will not validate each and every condition. I'll show you the proof for that as well. Okay, but let's try to execute first and then see how it is executing the things over here. So CLD and then it over here. This will return us first time the browser is Chrome, which is coming from this block of code. Now change it to Firefox. Change it to Firefox. Okay. Now this will again not validate, do we have case case value as Chrome. So it will not validate whether Firefox is equals to Chrome or not. It will just validate, do we have any case value as Firefox, and it will directly jump to that case. Okay, just give me 2 minutes and I'll show you the proof for that. Like it's saying browser is Firefox. Now if you change it to Safari, this will say like browser is Safari, and in case of Opera, it will just simply say it as the browser is not supported, which is similar in the case of the if-else-if statement as well. Now let's do one thing. One more thing that we have to remember over here, that if you remove the break keyword, or if you forget to write the break keyword inside the switch condition, at that point of time, it will keep on going and keep on executing all the statements that are available over here. What is under that? So break keyword is a keyword which will stop the execution inside the switch. Break keyword is a keyword which will stop the execution inside the switch. Okay. Now what is meant by that? That means wherever the break appears, a break keyword appears, from there it will just go on and remove the execution of all the code that are available inside switch. Okay. Now in this case, if you forget to write a break, or if you have commented the break, let's see what is happening. It says that browser is Chrome, browser is Safari, Firefox, browser is Safari, and browser is not supported. That means it will become the normal block of code, and it will keep on executing all the browser. This is the case. This is basically one of a proof that it does not validate the condition. Basically does not validate the condition. If it would have validated the condition, it would have failed over here and would have not gone inside this block of code. Okay, there's one proof where it does not check the condition. It just checks, do we have a case value available or not. Okay, now second thing, let's see over here. So I am just so as we have removed the break condition, right? So as we have removed the break condition, that means if you have removed the break condition, it will keep on executing all the things, right? Because we have just seen that when you try to check with a Chrome, it checked with this, printed this value, and then again gone inside the case, as we were not having, we had not given the break over there. It had gone inside this and then again printed this value as well. Though it was a false, but it has printed this because it does not check the condition. Okay, now let's see an example. So I am not trying to print a Safari. I'm just trying to check whether the browser name is Safari or not. At this point of time, this will become Safari. If let's say switch condition will validate all the different types of conditions, then it will go inside this and validate. As we do not have a break, it will print this, again will go inside this, validate, will again print this, and again we'll go and validate other things and keep on printing the values, right? But as happens in terms of a switch, it will only check whether the case value are available or not. Wherever the case value are available, it will go and jump to that particular block. In this case, you can see it has not gone to the Chrome. It has not gone to the Firefox. It directly jumped to the Safari. Though we have not given a break over here, it directly jumped to a Safari condition over here. And it validated whether do we have a case value at Safari or not. If it is available, then it will directly jump without validating the other conditions. So switch will not validate all the conditions, all the case value. It will just check, do we have any case value available? If it is available, it will directly jump to that block of code. Okay, and that's where it used to be a bit faster in terms of execution than if-else-if block, if-else-if statement. Now this switch statement will not work when you have a validation, when you have to do a validation for a ranges. When you have a validation for a ranges, when you are trying to check with different data types, and also when you are trying to use a logical operator, when we say like this one condition and other condition, or one condition or another condition, as one of our friend was saying, like browser equals to Chrome, or browser equals to Firefox, or browser equals to Safari. So whenever those kind of conditions are there, we have to go in by using if-else-if statement itself. We cannot take the help of a switch statement in that case. So when you have a ranges available at that point of time, we have to go with if-else-if condition. We cannot go with the switch expression, switch statement, because switch will directly validate the condition over here. Okay, when you have a range, you have to go back to the switch if-else-if statement. And also when you have multiple data types, let's say data types are different when we are trying to validate, data types are different when you are trying to validate the condition. Let's say one is numerical, other is Chrome. At that point of time, you cannot go to use switch statement, because switch accept an expression, and that should have to be either numeric, string, boolean, or any other data type over here. Okay, and third is when you try to use a logical operator. Logical operator means and or kind of combination. There you can also not go through the switch statement. In that case, you have to still go through with the if-else-if statement. Now only you can go for a switch statement where you are trying to validate a simple condition, a normal condition, where it involves with one data type. It do not have any kind of ranges, and it do not have any kind of logical operator involved. There we can go with the switch statement. Okay. Any question over here in terms of a switch?
Praveen sir, as you said, only one condition, right, for the switch statement. Then only we should go for it.
Right. A simple statement when you have to check, when you have a same data type where you are trying to check, let's say marks equal to 90, marks equal to 80, or so on. That is numeric data type. If you are trying to check, like let's say browser equals to Safari and so on, that is a string data type. When you have a combination of data type or multiple data types, there you cannot go through with the switch conditions.
Yeah, in this case, actually, we have let browser name Safari. Like for example, if we don't have Opera, right? Like it directly executes the browser is not supported, right, for the switch statement.
Yes. So in terms of this, you should be saying that it will directly go to the default block of code, because it checks only the case value are available or not. If the case value are not available, it will directly go to browser is not.
So another question is, what happens if I have edge actually when there is not at all in the condition? So does it execute, or?
Even in terms of edge, it will just give you the similar value, which is browser is not supported. Because we have not, right, because we have not given a condition. But if you want to add over here a condition, we can add it, saying that let's say if the browser is edge, then you do some other operations. Browser is edge, and then the browser is edge over here.
So it means that it will look for only that condition where the edge is, right? And then execute that statement.
Exactly. It will
Okay.
only look for that particular condition. That means a case value. If it is
It
available, then
happens only if we have a break. Like if we don't have a break, right, then it will execute all of the statements.
it will execute if all of the statement wherever it is matching in terms of a case value. After that, it will execute all of the statement.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you have a break, let's say over here as well, over here as well, and over here as well. Okay. So if you have given a condition as a Safari, so it will not go and check for the Chrome. It will not go and check for the Firefox. It will directly jump to a case wherever it is matching with Safari. And from there on, if you have not given a break keyword, then it will start executing everything. But still,
okay.
before that, it will not execute. That is the proof that it does not check for each and every condition.
Okay. Got it. Yeah, this is slightly different from if else if.
Right.
The else if would execute all of them depending on whatever the condition we've given, but this will execute from that point. Yeah, thank you.
So any other question over here in terms of statements? Okay. Right. So if no questions, then move on and let's see for the another type of topic in terms of both JavaScript and TypeScript, and that we have is I believe loops. Yes. Let's go ahead and see for the loops condition over here. Okay, let me
One
see.
more thing, Praveen sir, like is it the same for all programming languages? Like in the sense, like you've shown in TypeScript, right? It's the same for JavaScript as well, right? The statements.
Yes, both are same. There is no
Both
difference.
are same? Okay, for other programming languages too. Okay.
Other programming language as well, the syntax are same.
Thank you.
Okay. So one of a query that have been posted by Prashant over here saying that tsx program.ts, it's saying that basically you have, I believe, given some kind of wrong statement over here, which is program. You can just try to execute with the correct file name that you have given, and then it will execute. It says that the term program.ts is not recognized as the name of this. You have to check the spelling. You can just try to give the correct file name and then see what it is happening.
I mean, I've just given the proper name. The thing is, I'm not able to get the proper value in the console. It's actually coming some digits number. I just written the same code which you are just explaining. The same thing I have written, but I'm getting some numbers over there in the console.
No worries. I'll check it out after our session. So you can share your screen and then we'll go through it.
Okay, fine. Okay, thank you.
Nimisha, I'll check with this. This will be a bit hard because uploading all the recording inside the drive will also have a limited space. So uploading all the recordings will be a bit hard over there because every recordings used to be of more than 1 hour, and that used to take a much more space. That will not be giving some kind of values. Prashant, I'll come back to you. I believe that you have posted things. I'll check it out. Okay. Now let's move to the next concept that we have over here, which is loops in terms of our loops. So create another file. Let me delete the other things that we have, which is operator. Let it be over here. I'll just rename as test.js. So if there will be anything to check in terms of JavaScript, we can check it out over. Okay, so let's create another file which I'll give the name as loops.ps. Okay. Now, what is loops? Can anyone answer over here? What is loops?
A program which would iterate continuously, right? Iteration, repeat over and over.
Okay. Yes.
If you want to perform particular operations multiple number of times, as many times as you want in a loop. So we
Right.
can use loops.
Right. Right. Yes, that's right. So, anyone else wants to talk about loops? So generally, loops is something which will execute the same block of code multiple times. Okay, loops is something which will execute the same block of code multiple times. Same block of code multiple times. Now, what is meant by that? Same block of code multiple times. Now, till now, you might be knowing that what is block of code. That means whatever we write it inside the curly braces is known as a block of code, right? So loop says that it will run or it will execute the same block of code multiple times. Okay. Now, what can be the scenarios? What could be the scenarios? What could be the example in that case where it says that a same block of code multiple times, right? So let's see one simple example over here, that how we can take the help of looping concept to make our code easy, to make our basically life easy as well in terms of writing the code. Okay, let's see what is happening in this case. So we know that how do we print something on the console, right? By using a console.log, right? So we print something by using a console.log, which is console.log, and inside the log method, whatever you provided, it will be acceptable over there, right? So what, let's say you print it as 1 over here. Okay, so whatever you have given over here, that value it will print us on the console. Okay, that we have already seen many a times till now. And again, if you try to print this also, this will print us a value as 1. So tsx and then loops.ts. Loops basically, so we have to give loops.ts. And you can see that it has printed us a value as 1. There is no surprise in this, and we have seen this multiple. Let's say again I have to print another statement, which is 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So let's say if I have to print from 1 to 5 or 1 to 100. So we have given like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 by using console.log1, console.log2, and so on. In this case, if you see, if you carefully observe over here, right? So in this case, if you carefully observe over here, you'll see that all the codes that you have written over here are exactly same. Console.log along with the parentheses are same. The only thing that are getting changed over here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. Let's say this is 1 to 5, but if you have 1 to 100 kind of validation, if you have to print like let's say 1 to 50 or 1 to 100, will you be writing again every time console.log 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 100? No, right? That is a tedious process. That is a complex process. Even your code will look a duplicated value. Your code will look messed up over here, where you will be writing all the things like this kind of things, and this will not look good. Okay. So how do we basically go about write the single line of code, and whatever we are trying to print over here, let's say 1 to 100, 1 to 50, or so on, will be executed, right? So let's observe it carefully, where it says that console.log and parentheses are same. Again, console.log parentheses are same over here. The only changes are over here by inside the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? If you try to execute
for the same variable, right? For the same variable we're trying to print. Same data type.
Same data, right? So when you are trying to say like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you are basically again repeating the similar kind of things, which is console.log, and so on, right? And this is not a good practice. There comes the looping concept. In these cases, whenever we have certain or such situations, there we can use the loop concept. How can we use the loop? What it says is it will execute the same block of code multiple times. We have similar code over here that we have written multiple times, only the changing are number that we have defined over here, right? So we can simply take the help of any of the for loop, any of the loop. Example, let's say for loop. Do not worry how we are trying to declare over here. I'll explain in next couple of minutes. Let I equals to 1. Then we'll provide a condition. Let's say if you have to print till 50, I is less than or equals to 50, and then I plus plus. This increment operator that we have discussed earlier will be helpful over here. Okay, I plus plus. And then a block of code will be started over here. Inside the block of code, whatever we'll be writing will get executed multiple times. Okay, that is what the definition is, which will execute the same block of code multiple times. What is block of code? Whatever you write it inside the curly braces. This is a block of code that we have written, and this will get executed multiple times. That means it will execute till 1 to 50. We do not have to write multiple times console.log. We do not have to write 50 times console.log, and it had started printing from 1 to 50 over here by just writing one single line of code inside the curly braces. And the same block of code have been repeated multiple times. And that is where the loop comes into picture, which will solve our problem by writing the duplicate code as well as writing the code in a short form. Okay, so that's the use of that's basically the use of looping concept, which will execute the same block of code wherever we are trying to use similar block of code multiple times. There we can take the help of loop to execute those block of code. Okay, in that case, there are different types of loop that are available. Whatever the loop that we are trying to discuss over here are same in both JavaScript and TypeScript, and except few others are also same in all the other programming. Okay, in that case, we have a first, which is known as the first loop that we have is known as for loop. Okay. Now, in both JavaScript and TypeScript, there are three types of for loops. There are three types of for loop. One is known as a normal for loop, which is also known as traditional for loop. Traditional for loop. Second that we have is known as for of loop, which will be basically used for whenever we'll be working with an iterable objects like arrays and other things. I'll talk about this. Just remove this for now. So second type of for loop is for of loop, which will be helping us in terms of whenever we work with iterable objects like arrays, strings, and so on. And the third type of for loop is known as for in loop. For in loop will help us when we work with object concept. When we work with object in JavaScript and TypeScript, at that point of time, this for in loop will be helpful. For in loop will work on key and value pair. Depending on the key and value pair values, there we can basically use for in loop as well. Okay. Now, second type of loop that we have is same in other programming language as well, which is while. Okay. And third is do while. Okay. Apart from B and C, other loop that you see over here are also available in any other programming language as well, along with the same syntax. Okay, so let's go ahead and discuss one by one all the methods. But before that, let's see where can we use for loop, where can we use while loop, where can we use do while loop, and so on. So in terms of a for loop, which is again a traditional for loop, in terms of a traditional for loop, we can execute this loop if we know how many times, if we know before running the loop itself, if we know how many times we have to run the iteration. how many times we have to run the iteration. Okay, how many times we have to run the iteration. At that point of time, we can use traditional for loop, which is it will take a condition. So we know that here it will start from 1 and then it will go till 50. So it will take a condition over here, right? Other loop will also take a condition, but in terms of a traditional for loop, which is normal for loop, when we can use whenever we know that there are certain number of iterations that we have to do. Okay. Now you might be having a question, okay, can we not use in terms of when we do not know how many times we have to run? Okay, so why do we not use in that case is what kind of condition you will be writing over there? This is the condition that it takes. Okay, I'll explain all the parameters in detail, but second parameter that you see is a condition. So this condition will be evaluated every time, right? So in terms of when you do not know how many times that you have to execute the run, what type of condition that you'll be writing over there? Okay, and that is why we do not use for loop when you do not know how many times you have to run the loop. I'll also give you the example for all the things once we start discussion of loop. Okay, now for in loop will generally work with loop through object. We are talking about for of loop current. So for of loop will be used for the iterable objects. It will basically used. This loop will be used to iterate over iterable objects. Iterable objects. What can be that? That can be an array. That can be a string. Okay, array consists of more than one element. String consists of more than one character. Okay, so there we can use a for of loop. There we can use a for of loop, not for in loop. For of loop, there we can use. Whenever we know that we have to iterate through an iterable objects, which is array, which consists of more than one value, there we can take the help of for of loop to iterate through and get the value one value. Now, what is the use of for in loop? So for in loop will work for an object where it will iterate through the properties of an object. Okay, loop through the properties of an object. The properties of an object. It will simply loop through the properties of an object. What is in that? That means till now, if you have gone through with any other programming language, you might be knowing that object is something where we create a class and create an object for that particular class to get the properties and method from the class, right? In JavaScript and TypeScript, we have an object, something whenever you see something available inside a curly braces in a key colon value pair. Key colon value pair. Let's say name equals to Rahul, example. This is a key which is name and separated by a colon and then having a value. So whenever you see something like this inside a curly braces in both JavaScript and TypeScript, that is known as an object. So whenever we have to iterate through the keys, which is properties of an object, for in loop will come into picture. Okay. Now, what is the use of while loop? When can we use while loop? So while loop you can also use in place of a for loop. While loop you can also use in place of a for loop, but that is not a better practice. To follow a better practice, while loop we can use only when we do not know how many times we have to run the loop. Okay. If we do not know how many times we have to run the iteration. We do not know how many times we have to run the iteration. If you know how many times, then you can directly jump to a for loop. But if you do not know how many times, then we can take the help of while loop. Okay, while loop will take a condition, and depending on the condition, whenever it is matching or whenever the condition becomes false, the while loop will be terminated. Okay, and that condition can be anything. Let's say you are every one of you might be using e-commerce application, right? Some Amazon or Flipkart or any other things you should be using everyone, right? Or any other things. So whenever you try to search for a product, it can be possible that it can be available in the first page itself, right? If it is not available in the first page, then we'll basically go to the second page. Or if the pagination is not available and we have a lazy loading where you scroll down on the page and then few of the products will be loaded. If that is the situation, then again you have to scroll down on the page to find out the product, right? So there might be chances that you have to do scroll down one time, or there might be chances that you also have to do a scroll down for more than 10 times. So here we do not know how many times we have to scroll down on the page or how many times we have to click on the pagination. Right? In this case, we do not know how many times we have to basically click on the pagination next button or how many times we have to scroll down on the page. So that is a best candidate where we can use a while, depending on the condition. Wherever our product is available, then break the loop. If it is not available, then keep on scrolling. Okay, so there we can use a while loop. Now, what is the use of do while loop? Do while loop is similar to a while loop, but if we want to execute the loop at least one time, if we want to execute the loop at least one time, before checking the condition. At that point of time, we can take the help of do while loop. Okay. So if we want to execute the loop at least for one times before checking the condition, there we can take the help of do while loop. Okay. Now, what could be the example for this? The example can be, let's say, when any of the user is trying to log in inside any of the application, right? When a user is trying to log in inside any of the application, right? So what they'll do, they'll fill the username, they'll fill the password, right? So there we can use a do while to get the input value from a user, So at least one time you will be getting the input value from the user, and then you will validate whether the username and password is correct or not. If the username and password is correct, then you will basically allow them to enter into the application. If it is not correct, then again you will request them to enter the username and password. Okay, there might be a chances that the first time itself the user can enter correct username and password, or there might be a chances that it can take a number of times as well, right? So here in this case, at least one time we are allowing them to enter the things and then validate the condition whether username and password is correct or not. Okay, there we can use do while loop in general. Okay. Okay, so that is basically the place where we can use a do while loop, and for loop. Let's start with the first loop that we have over here, which is also known as a for loop, normal for loop. Let's see the first one, which is also known as a normal for loop. What is the syntax for this? Syntax for this is, and when can we use? We know that whenever we know how many times we have to run the iteration. Okay. So here again, what is the syntax? The syntax is again a simple, which is starting with a for keyword, and then it will take few parameters. The first one is initialization. Okay, and every parameter that you see over here will be separated with a semicolon. First is initialization, second is condition, will get again separated, and third will be either increment or decrement. Okay, and then a block of code will be started. Whatever the block of code that we have to write, that will go inside the curly braces. This is the normal syntax that we have for loop. First one is initialization, second one is condition, and third one is either increment or decrement. Okay, now what is the significance of initialization, condition, or increment or decrement? So let's see that as well. So what is the parameter that we are trying to define is initialization. So initialization means initialize the variable to start the execution. It generally what it does is it initialize the variable to start the execution. That means that will be a starting point of the loop at the execution. That will be a starting point of the loop. Example, let I equals to 0. Example I'm talking about, let I equals to 0. What did we do over here is we have declared a variable and also have initialized the value over here. In this case, if you see, we have not only declared the variable, but we have also initialized the variable over here. Okay, and that is what known as initialization as a first parameter. That means that will be an initial point of starting the loop. Okay, initial point of starting the loop. Okay, now what is condition? The second condition is a condition. It will so loop will always check a condition. Every time it will perform some kind of condition. Okay, that is the condition that we have to provide over here. What is the condition? Conditions is that condition to check whether the loop should continue or not. As soon as the condition becomes false, okay, so when the loop will be terminated. Okay, when the loop will be terminated, I'll as soon as we'll try to print this particular example over here, right? I'll take this example over here. And then I'll show you when the loop will get terminated. Okay, so condition, whatever the second parameter that you have given over here as a condition. So condition to check whether the loop should continue or not. That means when we write a let's say I less than 10 or I less than or equals to 5. So when should the loop basically the loop should be terminated. That is the condition that we have to provide over here. Okay, so loop will keep on running. Any kind of loop will keep on running as soon as the condition are true. Once the condition become false, the loop will automatically terminate. Okay, once the condition become false, the loop will automatically get terminated. And third thing is that we see increment or decrement. That means it will simply increase or decrease the variable after each iteration. Increase or decrease, that means increment or decrement the variable after each iteration. That can be I++ or I-, that we had seen at the time of going through with operators. I++ or I-. Okay, that is the parameter.
Just a quick question. Why are we not taking pre-increment instead of we are taking post-increment, right? I++. Why are we not taking ++ I in this case?
You can also give a ++ I.
++ I as well, right? Yeah.
Yes.
It will do the same thing, right? Like, if we do.
It will do exactly similar. There will be a slight difference. It will do exactly similar things. I'll show you what will happen in that case.
Yeah, thank you.
So you can also see something over here, which is let's say I'll just mention I++ or I-, or ++ I or -. I. That is the increment or decrement. So there are three different parameters that for loop will take. First is initialization. Initialization means you are saying that at which point the loop should have to start. What is the starting point of the execution of the loop? Okay. Second is a condition. Condition, it will validate each and every time whether the condition is true or not. As soon as the condition becomes false, the loop will be terminated. Condition is basically a execution or termination of a loop. Okay. And third one is increment or decrement. That means every time when we try to run the loop, after running the loop or after execution of the loop, after each iteration, the value will get incremented or decremented depending on whatever we have used. Okay, so that is in initialization, condition, increment or decrement. Now let's use the similar syntax and write a program to print, let's say to print 1 to 5. Okay, let's say to print 1 to 5. Example, for loop we'll be using many a times. We'll be using inside our test automation as well many times. Now here for starting with a for keyword. Second will be the initialization part. So what is the initialization? We have initialized a variable, and in that variable we have given a value where it has to start the execution. At what point it has to start the execution. Okay, so here we have initialized a value to a variable, that is known as initialization. Let I equals to 1. That means I, in terms of a iteration, the I will start from 1 over here. Okay, I equals to 1. Second, as every parameter will be separated with a semicolon. So the second value that we have given over here is a condition. What is the condition that we have given? We have given a condition I is less than or equals to 5. That means you have to print the value till I becomes 5 over here. As soon as I becomes 6, the loop will be terminated. Okay, I'll go through it in detail again. And then we have written I plus plus over here. Okay, that means this is an increment or decrement part. Okay, and then some kind of value that we have written inside the curly braces, which is a block of code that we have written to print something on the console. Right? So now let's see how does the execution start over here. So as soon as we have started, as soon as we have written some kind of loop over here, which is in this case like this, which is for loop that we have written, have started with let I equals to 1. Okay, so this is the initial point where the loop has to start. So for the first time I becomes 1. Okay, for the first time I becomes 1 over here. So and this is the initialization. So I will start with 1 and then it will check a condition. Even for the first time as well, it will check a condition. What is the condition? I is less than or equals to 5. What is I currently? I becomes 1 over here. So it will validate. Do we like the condition is 1 is less than or equals to 5. Okay. For the first time it will be 1 is less than or equals to 5, which is true. Yes, 1 is less than 5. Okay. And then it will get a increment value over here, right? So after checking the condition, it will go and print the value whatever we have written inside the curly braces. So for the first time, the 1 will be printed over here. Okay. After printing the value, as we have given a post increment over here, after printing the value will get incremented. Okay. What it will get incremented? So at this point of time, this is basically 1 plus plus. So 1 plus plus becomes 1 plus 1 equals to 2. 1 plus 1 equals to 2, right? So now for the next iteration, I becomes 2. I becomes 2 over here. It will validate the condition 2 is less than or equals to 5. Yes, and that will get printed over here, which is 2. And then again 2 will be incremented. So I becomes 3. It will again validate the condition 3 is less than or equals to 5. Yes, true. And then 3 will be printed over here. 3 will become 4 in the next iteration due to I plus plus. So I becomes 4 and it will validate 4 is less than or equals to 4 or not. Yes, 4 is less than or equals to 4. So it will print the value 4. Now I becomes 5. It will validate again the condition 5 is less than or equals to 5 or not. Yes, 5 is not less than 5, but 5 is equals to 5. It will come over here and print the value as 5. Now I becomes 6 over here. And it will again check the condition whether 6 is less than or equals to 5, which is false. As soon as the condition becomes false, the loop will automatically get terminated over here. So after printing 5, the loop will get terminated over here in this case. Now if you see in this case, this will just print the value from it will just print the value from 1 to 5, and for the 6 it will get automatically terminated over here. Okay, and that is how the loop works. That is how the condition works. As soon as the condition becomes false, the loop will be terminated. Let's say if you do not have given any kind of conditions. Let's say if you have not given any kind of condition over here, what will happen in that case? Then this becomes then in that case, this becomes a infinite loop, because you have not given any condition. So that condition will be an infinite. It will not validate any type of condition, and it will keep on incrementing the value and printing the value over here. You can see that it has already printed 50,000 times, right? So it will keep on printing the value over here. That becomes a infinite loop if you are not trying to provide the condition. Okay, so that's the use of a for loop. Now, we have a question saying that what will happen in terms of when we use a plus plus, which is like pre-increment. In terms of a pre-increment, let's see what is happening over here. In terms of pre-increment, if you try to execute this, you'll get the similar value, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so what happened in this case is, again, this will increment, but the value will be incremented and it will be printed over here. So first print the value, whatever the action that we're trying to perform, the value will be incremented over here, and here keep on, it will start printing the value over here, whatever the value it becomes. In terms of both I++ and plus I, the value will become the similar. Like first time it will print I, after checking the condition, the increment will happen. That increment will happen over here before performing any kind of operation. So I becomes 2, again it will validate 2 is less than 5, I becomes 3, 3 is less than 5, and so on. It will keep on printing the value as well. Okay, so that's where you will see also over here that it has printed the value, which is whatever it has to print over here. Okay, so here if you observe, we have given a condition, and the condition is such a way that we know how many times we have to run the loop. We know how many times we have to run the loop. If you give the 50, then it will print the value from 1 to 50 over here. That means it knows that how many times we have to run the loop, right? So there the for loop will come into picture. Okay.
But what is the real-time example, right? Like you say we know fixed length, right? For fixed length, like
right.
Then
so sometimes when you have, let's say, you are working with some elements. Let's say you have you are working with a drop down, and if you are trying to print all the elements from a drop down, how many elements are available over there? So at that point of time, we'll be knowing the exact number of elements that are available inside a drop down.
Oh, for loop will come into picture, right?
For
Yeah, these many 12 or 13th. Okay, got it.
Right.
Yeah, and for a while loop, I think, as you said, right, when we are looking for a product and we don't know where it is, then while loop. Yeah.
Pagination also, and calendar selection also, we can use a while loop.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Now the second type of loop that we have is while loop. I'll finish it off in next 10 minutes, because while loop and do while will not take much time. And other loops that we have, which is for off loop, we'll discuss at the time of going through with array, because to work with for off loop, we have to understand what is array, and for in loop, to work with for in loop, we have to understand object. So at that point of time, I'll discuss these two things, and I'll definitely discuss. Do not worry, I'll never forget this thing. I'll discuss for off loop at the time of array, and for in loop at the time of object. Okay. So if you see an example, you can see over here that for one of other batch, I have just discussed for off loop inside the array section. Okay, so if you see over here, we have discussed for off loop over here. Okay, at the time of array. Okay, now let's go ahead and see for the while loop as well. As I said, while loop will be the best practice to use a while loop is when you do not know how many times you have to iterate the loop. Okay, but you can also use for the fixed number of iteration as well. But the good and better practice is use a while loop when you do not know that how many times you have to iterate the loop. Okay, now what is the syntax? Syntax is similar to a for loop, but in a different way. Syntax is similar to a for loop, but in a different way. So here also initialization will happen. Initialization will also happen in terms of a while loop, but that will happen before before using the while keyword, for taking the while keyword and taking the condition. So initialization will happen before using the while loop. Before using the while loop, then while will take a condition over here. Okay, then while will take a condition, whatever the condition that we have to validate, and inside the curly braces, we have to write the increment or decrement part. Increment or decrement part will come inside the curly braces over here in terms of a while loop. Whereas in terms of for loop, initialization, condition, increment and decrement will go inside the parenthesis of for itself. And in terms of while loop, the first we have to do is an initialization. Second, we'll start with a while loop, which will take a condition, and then third, increment and decrement will come into picture inside the block of code of the while loop itself. Example, let's say if you are trying to print from 10 to 1, let's say example, print the value from 10 to 1. Okay. I'm trying to use decrement because we have already used increment. So let's use how do we do a decrement over here. The first thing that we have to do is an initialization. Right? Initialization means the similar initialization that you have to do over here. We are trying to use a print 10 to 1, so we can simply say it as let I equals to 10. What is initialization? The starting point of the loop. Right? Always remember that the initialization will be the starting point of the loop. Either you use for loop, while loop, do while loop, that will be the starting point. Okay. So what we are saying, we have to start it from 10 and come down to the 1 over here. Right? Start from 10 and come down to a 1 over here. Okay. And then after initialization, the while loop will come into picture. What is while? While I is greater than or equals to 1 or greater than 0. And then inside this, we can write a console.log and then we can say I minus minus. So if you see the syntax, which is initialization, we have done initialization over here. A while condition, while, and then condition. What is the condition? We cannot write condition like I is less than or equals to 1 or I is less than or equals to 0. If you write I is less than or equals to 0, or let's say I is less than 0, this will always be true, and this will become an infinite loop over here. This will become an infinite. In terms of this, like what will happen? In terms of this, what will happen is this will never get executed. This will never get executed anything in this case. Why? Because it basically tries to check the values over here. It basically tries to check the condition, and the condition first time itself becomes false. 10 is less than 0. No, 10 is not less than 0. So it has not printed any value over here. Let me also terminate over here and just say it as TLG, and then say while loop. In this case, again, if you see, it has not printed any value because the condition becomes false for the first time itself. So we have to choose the condition in that way, whatever our requirement is. So we are saying over here I is greater than 0. So I is 10, 10 is greater than 0. Yes, 10 is greater than 0. It will come inside the loop and print the value. I will be decremented. So 10 have been printed first time, second time 9, third time 8, and so on. What happened over here? I is 10. We'll check the condition. 10 is greater than 0. Yes, true. It will print the value as 10 over here. Okay, so 10 will be printed. Here, I minus minus. After printing the value, the 10 will be decremented over here to 1. That means I become 9. Again, next condition, 9 is greater than 0. Yes, printed the value 9. 8 is greater than 0. Yes, printed the value, and so on till 1 over here. So 1 is greater than 0. Yes, that will again print the value. And here it becomes 1 minus minus. 1 minus minus. What is 1 minus minus? Is equals to 0. So it will check if 0 is greater than 0. No, the condition becomes false and the loop will be terminated over here. If you say it as 0 is greater than or equals to 0, at this point of time, it will print the value from 10 to 0 because 0 is greater than 0. greater than or equals to 0. That means the condition is true. Next time I becomes -1, so the condition becomes false, and then the loop have been terminated. Okay, so this is an example where you can also use the while loop for known value as well. That means if you know how many times you have to run the loop. Okay, and what could be the general example? A general example can be like when you go for a pagination example, you might not be knowing that in which page your product is available. Or when you go for selecting a value from a calendar, let's say if you're trying to select from May 2027, like today May 2027, and tomorrow you change it to December 2029, right? So here what happened is, again, you do not know how many times the loop that you have to run. That there is not fixed value. In the month of April, you have to run, let's say for selecting the December value, you have to run the loop for 8 times. In the month of May, you only have to run for 7 times. In the month of June, you have to run for 6 times, and so on, right? So the number of iteration is not fixed. And we do not know how many times we have to run the loop. There you can go for a while loop selection. And then the last one that we have over here is a do while loop. Do while loop. So as we talked about, so do while you can basically use when you know. Basically, it is similar to the while loop when you know like how many times, when you do not know how many times. But if you are trying to print at least one time, at that point of time, you can go for do while loop. Now, what is in the print at least one time? That means if you are trying to execute the loop at least one time, then you can go for validation or utilization of a do while loop. What is the syntax? Syntax is it will start with a do keyword. We'll start it with a do keyword, and inside the do we'll be writing all the block of code. Here we'll have to write the block of code. And increment and decrement part will also happen inside the block of code itself, which is inside the do. And then while loop comes into picture over here, which will take a condition, and we have to enter this with a semicolon over here. Okay. And before using the do while, there will be an initialization over here. Before using a do, you have to also initialize the value, which will be starting point of the execution. Again, let's say an example, which is, I'll say it as let j equals to 1. Okay. Let j equals to 1, and we have started a do, which is do inside that. Let's print, which is console.log, and then this will be increment and decrement part, which is j plus plus. And then at the end, you will be writing the condition over here, which is, let's say j is less than or equals to 5. What happened in this case is we have done an initialization, j equals to 1. Started a do while loop using a do keyword, do, and then inside the do we'll have to write the curly braces. Inside the do itself, the curly braces will come into picture. That means it says that it will at least execute one time before it go and check the condition inside the while loop. Okay, so now in this case, if you try to see, this will still print the value from 1 to 5. This will still print the value from 1 to 5 over here. Okay, so what is the difference then? Let's see the example. So here we said that let's say I is equals to 1. Okay, and we are, let's say I is equals to 10, and we are trying to check I is less than or equals to 0. In this case, what we are trying to do, we are trying to print from 10 to 1. So we have written some false condition over here in the while loop. Okay, and let's try to do the similar kind of operation in terms of a do while as well. Okay, so I'll just declare let j equals to 10, and then we are saying that j is less than or equals to 0, or less than 0 we have given over here, right? Less than 0, the similar condition that we have given over here, I over here and j over here. Okay, so if you see in both of the condition, we have written the same condition. Let me take it up a bit so that it will be visible more. You can say let I equals to 10, and then we are trying to get a condition I is less than 0. So we know that the condition become false in the first stage itself, so it will not print anything, right? In terms of a while loop, it will not print anything. And in terms of a do while loop, the similar kind of statement will print at least one. Will at least print one time. How? We have given a j equals to 10, and inside the do, we are trying to print j over here. The j will be printed over here, which is 10, and then j will get incremented, or let's say minus minus if you are seeing, then j will get decremented. J will become 9, and then it will validate whether j is less than 0 or not. After printing the value for the first time, after that it will validate the condition. So in this case, at least one time the loop will get executed. So let's see what is happening. While loop does not print anything. Do while loop has printed one time at least over here, and after that it validated, okay, 9 is less than 0, so the condition become false, and this will get completed over here. Okay, so as soon as the condition become false in any of the loop will be terminated. But in terms of a do while loop, you can see that it has at least printed one time. At least it has printed one time over here. Okay, that is the use of do while loop when you are trying to get at least one input from the user. Let's say if a user have gone to a restaurant where they have digital option to order some kind of food over there, right? So what they have to do is they have to select a food first, and after selecting the food, there will be a process happen in the backend where it will try to check the condition. Okay, if the food is available, or if the quantity is available, then it will allow, else it will say sorry, not available, you can select different foods, and so on, right? So at least one time it will get the value from the user. There we can use a while loop, do while loop in those conditions. Okay, so that's the basic use of a normal looping concept that we have. For off loop, we'll discuss at the time of array. For in loop, we'll discuss at the time of going through with object. Okay, any question? Yes.
Is it specific to JavaScript and TypeScript, for off and for in?
Yes, it is specific to JavaScript and TypeScript.
TypeScript, right? Okay, for our automation framework, right? So we would use commonly while loops, right? Like not, or use the other ones too.
For our test automation purpose, we'll be using a traditional for loop as well as for off loop.
Off loop, okay.
Whenever we have to do a data-driven testing, we'll get the data inside an array, and there we can use a for off loop.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Any other question from anyone over here? Okay. So that's about it then. Let me check it out if you have any questions inside the Q&A. So we have playwright course noted for that is only for, not for playwright course is only for the playwright inside the drive folder that you see of playwright is only for the playwright interview questions. Inside the JavaScript or TypeScript, inside the TypeScript folder, you will get the interview questions related to JavaScript. So if you see over here inside the TypeScript folder, you will have these values. So there we have a JavaScript programming interview questions and coding interview questions as well, which will have inside the coding, you will get 100 questions over there, 100 code over there available for the practice. Let me see if anyone is trying to also ask. So if any one of you are trying to ask any questions, feel free to ask. I have already given you an option to mute and unmute. You can ask the questions, but for PDF format, not present. Right. So for PDF format of the JavaScript and TypeScript, interview questions are not over there. That is available inside the Word format. For Playwright, you will be getting for PDF. For off loop and for in loop, is it for, yes, JavaScript and TypeScript itself? That is specific to JavaScript and TypeScript. So is there any way we can get the access of all recording of the session in one place? If not, right, I'll find out the solution for this. I'll definitely find out the solution for this, that we can paste it inside folder or not, and that I'll definitely take it out.